All right, today we're going to zoom way in on just one flower. And trust me, it has a surprisingly complex story. We're talking about everything from its scientific address to a secret past. So let's just jump right in.
And here it is. This is the large-flowered Sobralia. I mean, it is just a stunning member of the orchid family, right? But its beauty, that's really just the beginning. This flower has its own identity, a specific home, and even a history that, well, it might just surprise you.
Okay, first things first. If we really want to understand this plant, we've got to know its official name. The one that scientists use to tell its story. And that name is Sobralia Macrantha. This is basically the key that unlocks its whole story. It's the universal name scientists use, and it's going to be our starting point for this deep dive.
Now, a name like Sobralia Macrantha, it's so much more than just a label. Think of it more like an address. It tells us exactly where this orchid fits in the huge, vast family tree of life. So let's break down that address.
The easiest way to wrap your head around scientific classification is to think of it just like a mailing address. Seriously, it starts out really broad, right? Like the country. And then it gets more and more specific until you land at one unique house on one particular street.
So a really important part of that address is something called the genus. This is just a group of super closely related species. So if the species is the house number, then the genus is the street it's on. And, all the neighbors on that street are going to be pretty similar. Okay, so here's its full address, laid out for us. It starts way up in the plant kingdom, but as we zoom in, we land in the family Orchidaceae. And get this, that's one of the largest and most diverse plant families on the entire planet. From there, we find its unique street, the genus Sobralia, and finally, its specific house number, Macrantha.
All right, so we know its scientific identity. Now let's find it on a map. Where in the world does this orchid actually call home?
So the Sobralia Macrantha is a true native of the Americas. You can find it growing out there totally wild in a range that kicks off in southern Mexico and just stretches all the way down through the incredible ecosystems of Central America.
But, of course, the story gets a little more complex here. See, scientists actually recognize two distinct variations, or subspecies. They're both technically Sobralia macrantha, but they have these slight differences that have allowed them to carve out their own unique geographical footprints.
And this is where that difference really becomes clear. So take a look at the first subspecies, Hinastiana. See that? It's only found in Costa Rica and El Salvador. Now compare that to the main subspecies, Macrantha. Whoa. Its range is massive, stretching all the way from Mexico down through Central America. This just illustrates the difference in their stories so perfectly, doesn't it? One is a total specialist with a really limited and specific habitat. The other is a generalist, just thriving across this huge, varied landscape. It's just a fantastic example of biodiversity all within a single species.
Okay, so we've covered what it is and where it lives, but there's one more piece to this puzzle: what it used to be. A scientific name isn't always permanent, and this particular orchid's label has a pretty fascinating history.
Scientific names are not set in stone. As our understanding of the natural world gets better and evolves, so do the names we use. And when a plant gets renamed, its old name becomes what's called a synonym. It's like a historical marker of our scientific journey. And our orchid is a perfect example of this. Can you believe it? Back in 1854, it was actually known as Catalia macrantha. That means scientists thought it belonged to a completely different group of orchids. This change is just science in action. As botanists studied it more closely, they realized its true family was the Sobralia genus, so its name got updated to reflect that truth.
So as we look at this beautiful orchid one last time, it's pretty clear it's so much more than just a pop of purple in the forest, right? It's got a precise identity, a specific home in Central America, and a scientific story that has actually changed over time. It's really a perfect little snapshot of how the natural world works.
And maybe that's the real story here. All of this, a unique identity, a sprawling home, an evolving history, it was all hidden inside a single flower. It kind of makes you wonder, right? How many other complex stories are just waiting to be discovered in the nature we walk past every single day?